Lewis in the Black Horse Pub. Well, good morning, and lurking to my right, stage left, is one of the terrible two Bs, Richard, who has wandered down here from the haven of his wonderful house opposite the prison.
Near the prison.
Very appropriate. Ready to join me and to the other terrible bee, Philip Meredith, who has got a different. He's been a naughty boy. He's had to get a different email address, so we've sent off to him, and he should be joining us very shortly. In the meantime, let us just say. It looks as if it's going to be quite a nice day. In fact, let me give you the weather forecast. We got somewhere. There we go. Tomorrow we can expect thunderstorms. Bless me, it's going to hit a heady 12 degrees. It's going to hit 11 today. Sunny and a moderate breeze, particularly around about 1 o'clock. It's going to turn sunny and stay sunny until 4 o'clock, when night is going to start to creep in. And I said to Richard, is it the time of the equinox? Is it the equinox?
Solstice.
The solstice, yes. I got it right the first time. And it is. So we can expect some early... So we're just checking out to see whether the technicals are all correct.
I'll ask Keith to send it back through.
And I have no idea what they're going to talk about. They like to surprise me, so we'll have to wait for that.
I know you have.
It was
I can see that.
a funny weekend, and. We're having technical problems with the phone?
No, the Ginger Whinger says he hasn't had the link through.
Well, I'll send it.
Do you want to check again the email address?
He never checks this junk. It does tend to go into the junk side of things because it's not registered on his phone. But I'm just saying if there's anything we could pop up. In the meantime, not really. We hadn't expected this sort of delay, so. It says that the browser is having trouble with the video this morning, so that's quite normal for a Monday morning. A headache, the system gets a headache, so we have to put up with it. We've tried aspirin, and it does not work with it at all. The system does not like aspirin. What I'm going to do though is I'm actually going to send the link to Philip again, just to be on the safe side. No, I've forgotten what his new thing is. Oh dear, we should have been playing around with this beforehand, and we weren't. We were very naughty. I'm terribly sorry, because actually I watch these things back, and they irritate the hell out of me. So I'm sure that they really irritate you, and we mustn't do that because you'll go and join someone like the BBC or something. That would never do. We mustn't have you falling into bad ways. At 828.
No.
$828.
No. So you've got there's an name 828 at, and then
Meredith 828 at BT Internet.
.com.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay. There we go. There we are. We've sent it off again. Let's see if we're still there. Oh, we're still there. That's very good. At least the headache didn't extend to
Exactly.
to pushing us off the air. I'm going to move this around a little bit to get you in.
Okay.
There we go. So you actually have not been quite as active as you normally are, because you're like me, a blue-ass fly. But you've been a little bit poorly.
Yeah, a little bit poorly, but so I made the decision that I would not go to court until after Christmas, so I can do things from home. The other advantage of that, which I'm not allowed to say, is I will have avoided 2 lawyers' parties. One for local solicitors and one for just members of chambers. And I can't really say that I enjoy them.
Well, as in a funny sort of way, I envy you, because at one time I would have been going to sort of 10 parties a week approaching Christmas, and now, strangely enough, I haven't been to any. Although I have to say that on Friday I was here after the program, and I tidied up, and a whole bunch of people came in, and one just simply started to talk to me the way that they used to in the pubs in old days. And they're a very interesting group of farmers who get together. They all deal with one another. And there's, I think, a food farm food dealer and so on, and they all work with one another one way or another, and they get together, 12 of them, each Christmas, and they come here and they have a drinks, and then they go off to Skeins Hill, and a pub. It's got a very funny name. It's not a pub name at all, but and they've done it for the last 15 or 20 years apparently. They started to talk to me, and I had a very interesting time finding out about them and what they did and so on. I pulled Phil and Richard poking into their lives and what they did. And the fact of the matter is, of course, is that everybody's life and everybody's activities are interesting.
Yep.
And not only that, but people forget. So if they hear it 10 times, it doesn't matter. Guess who's arrived? Good morning, Philip.
Morning,
Yeah,
Philip.
good morning, Keith.
And as you can see, I've got the other terror beside me.
Well, there's
Very
two terrors. There are two
Yeah.
terrors beside you. One is canine, the other is human.
No, he's not here with me. I left him at home because Monster Dog, the other dog, would be then left on his own, and they were playing quite nice. Well, they were having one of their play fights. I thought, leave you to it.
You slipped out.
Well, as long as you and Keith don't start having a play fight, I'll be fine.
It wouldn't.
We haven't started yet.
Play would have nothing to do with it. I promise you.
Okay, over to you two.
Right, Keith. Well, I've got a question for you, which is the song "By the Sleepy Lagoon" was an instrumental piece written by Eric Coates. Why does just about everybody in this country know that piece of music?
Does it precede a television program? Is it the theme to Coronation Street, for instance?
No,
No,
not TV.
not TV, radio?
Yep.
It isn't Coronation Express, is it?
No,
Okay, am I close?
no.
Oh dear. Because I remember on a Sunday afternoon listening to Paul Temple,
Oh, yeah.
to whom the introductory music was the Coronation Express.
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun. And actually, not avoiding answering your question, which I can't. Do you find that you remember things, music particularly, from your youth,
Oh, yes.
rather than from yesterday?
Yes.
Mm.
Anyway, that particular piece of music by Eric Coates
Is what?
is the theme tune to Desert Island Discs.
Oh, gosh.
And so I thought that, albeit we're not going to play any music today, Flip and I thought that we would do our Desert Island Discs. Now, I know I landed that on you, but
That was an interesting theme. I mean, I had a lot of nice comment about our food show. I had the complaint that we hadn't done a food show, and in fact, food shows, are the most difficult programs to do in television because you have to keep on moving around in the kitchen, and the big thing with the cameraman is just try and stay out of each other's way so they don't actually appear on the program. Yes, Desert Island Discs or Choice of Music.
so as you know, Keith, it's been running for, I think, almost as long as you have.
Yes, it has.
And
In fact, probably longer.
I think it's 1946.
Not longer, but certainly the 1940s.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been during the war years, but 46 could be immediately afterwards.
And as you will know, Keith, the idea of it is that they have a guest on each week who chooses 8 pieces of music, which they talk about within the context of their life, and they say why that piece of music is important to them, and then at the end of that process they choose a book and a luxury item. So, Philip, would you care to kick us off with your first choice, please?
Yes, well, my choices, should we get that far, given the late start, are really a hybrid. So my wife Jackie has had a little bit of input, mainly because there are 2 or 3 of them that we share memories of. A joint memory for her living in Highgate near Kenwood. Her father was a great fan of the concerts there, and he would take her regularly to the concerts up there by the lake at Kenwood House. And here in Arundel, until it fell apart, there was a very, very excellent annual festival which had marvellous concerts. And somebody who played at Kenwood and at Arundel was Acker Bilk. And so a favourite tune of ours, which involves the clarinet, which we both love, is Stranger on the Shore.
It's very tricky. I used to play the clarinet. That first glide is desperately tricky to do because you're not keying the difference between the notes. It's all to do with the breath. And so you move an octave simply by the way you're blowing into the clarinet. You know, I never mastered it.
I mean, a second song, again, a joint one is the vocalist, Irish vocalist called Enya.
Yeah.
And her song, one of her songs was called, well, the album was called Watermark, but so was the song.
Yes.
And the joint memory there is that was playing in the St. Richard's Hospital birth chamber when Oliver was born.
Right.
And Jackie remembered that, as women do.
Yeah. Well, let me give you my first two. The first one would be Nimrod.
Yep. Wonderful, wonderful song.
And
tune.
Yeah. And I think it ought to be the national anthem.
No, agreed. I vow to be my country.
No.
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 I thought that was part of it.
No. That's from Holst Planet.
Correct. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be my first choice, simply because I think it ought to be the national anthem and have for many years. My second choice would be I Will Always Love You. I'm not saying that to you, Philip.
Thank God, because you never live up. You never live up to that.
But I want the original Dolly Parton version. And the reason I'd want that is that my parents were such great fans of hers. And it would remind me of them. So those are my first two. Keith, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I do. It's 1946. We didn't have a top 20 and that sort of thing. But we did have a form of DJ, and one of the very early ones was Jack Jackson, who used to come on a Sunday morning at about he slightly after people had got home from church and before they'd had their Sunday lunch, and he discovered from somewhere a record that was a Chinese girl, and I've forgotten her name offhand, but when she sang the song in English, it sounded as if she was saying "make way and make way," and I think actually the title of the song is "Gateway," and I'm sure that you heard it because it's been Frankie Lane remade it as "Make way, da 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 da," and it's all about a Chinese girl saying goodbye to her American sailor lover. But it's a very pretty piece. But it got into the psyche of the entire country. Everybody was going around humming it, and particularly in those post-war years, we needed that. Jack Jackson was an absolute national favourite, And secondly, as told you before, Caterina Valenta, The Breeze and I was just captivated by her voice, and still am. But the man who used to play her was Jack DeManio. Do you remember Jack DeManio in the 50s? Jack DeManio is, I quite often say, quite publicly, I have Jack DeManio moments, because he could never get the time right. He could never get the date right. He could never get anything right in terms of anything that he was supposed to give out as information. And it got to the point where people would tune in to see what mistake Jack DeManio was going to make on any given day. So those are my two early selections. Is the Chinese girl singing Gateway, and Caterina Valenta, The Breeze and I, which still, to my mind, is the most mournful song, because we've all, one way or another, gone through a broken love affair, and her haunting voice just evokes that, oh my God, I remember Molly sort of thing, you know. So there you go, that's mine.
Philip, your next two?
Well, inevitably, and you'll both know immediately, the reason for my love of this song is Blue Moon, sung by Ella Fitzgerald, one of the most wonderful voices ever, and a beautiful version of it for obvious reasons. Simply because it's from, in my opinion, the best rock album ever, Dark Side of the Moon, the track Time by Pink Floyd. And the ending of Time is a salutary message to all of us, because many of us, including me, may well have missed the starting gun once in a while. So they're my next two.
Right. Well, my third one, I have to have something to reflect my Scottish roots. But I'm not going to choose Donald Where's Your Trousers. But a song that I really do like and find myself playing 2 or 3 times a week is Sunshine on Leith by the Proclaimers.
Ah, yes.
Which is a beautiful sort of love song about redemption. And it sounds very, very sad to begin with, but in fact, the lyrics end up saying, thank you, thank you, thank you to the person who has looked after them. And oddly enough, my fourth one is also a Pink Floyd song, which is Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Yeah, yeah.
And I choose that because it reminds me of my brother. And I don't know if you know the story about it. Pink Floyd it was a song that they wrote about a chap called Syd Barrett, who was an original member and had mental health issues, and then just simply disappeared, stopped playing, all that. And when they were recording it in the studio, this very rotund man with shaved eyebrows and a shaved head came in and sat in the corner. And everybody assumed that he was with one of the others. But he wasn't. It happened to be Syd Barrett, who turned up as they were recording the song about him. And there's no reason why I would have known. So, you know, so that's my 3 and 4. Keith?
I think we're influenced by people that we actually met, as well as the quality of the song.
Catch the name.
Is for another reason, Louis Armstrong's "We Have All the Time in the World." It's played in a James Bond movie, but also I had it played at my wife's funeral. But I also met Louis Armstrong several times,
You never mentioned that to me.
Louis didn't.
No.
Well, I told him not to say too much about it. I didn't want to appear to boast.
No.
So all the time in the world is my first one, and then there are several that keep popping into my mind as I speak, and I keep changing my mind every 5 minutes. But one that I think is an all-time standard and yet a very odd song is "Come Up and See Me."
Yep.
Is the lyrics are very difficult to understand, but the song itself is tremendous, and when they play snippets of it in the Full Monty, it really gets you going.
We're Keith's back on his pet topic, stripping off.
But he leaves his hat on.
Absolutely, always. Yes,
It depends where he leaves it.
even in the bath.
Yes. Philip,
That's me.
we move on.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the Proclaimers.
Yeah.
And this is where I bring my wife in again, because she went to Glastonbury a few years ago, and the Proclaimers were very much a side act, but they one of the people Jackie was with videoed them playing to this gaggle of very elderly people, some in wheelchairs. It's quite extraordinary. But I only mention that because at that Glastonbury performed Stormzy, a somewhat controversial figure, but you may have picked up on the fact that at the time he came on stage wearing a stab vest.
Yes.
With a Union Jack on it.
Yes.
Because it was when knife crime was particularly high in the media. But he sang, because he is in fact a devout Christian, he sang a song that Jackie is still moved by, called "Blinded by Your Grace." And it was played, I know you'll be rather cynical about this, Richard, but it was played to the crowd in which Jackie was. It was a huge crowd, absolutely huge. And quite literally, you could have heard a pin drop. So that's really Jackie's choice, but worth a mention. Sorry, I'm being distracted because my daughter's ringing me. Hang on. Now, I was going to say, on the jazz side, Take 5 by Dave Brubeck. Why I'm withdrawing that now is because Keith has just reminded me of someone who is Louis Armstrong, who did an album with Duke Ellington. The title track was Duke's Place, because Ellington had a jazz cafe in New York. And this is an album full of songs by Armstrong with Ellington on the piano. And it's just two massive, massive stars hooking up and delivering brilliant music. I still like Take 5, though.
Yeah, the problem I find with Take 5 is that I can listen to it for about 45 seconds. And then I think, this is just going round on a loop. It's the same.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but there we go. Right, my fifth choice, because I'm proud to be British, is Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis.
Yeah.
Paul Williams, because I think it's arguably, it's the most English piece of music I know. It's certainly the most British piece of music, and it just evokes all the thoughts of, the rural idyll that people have had in this country, and I find it quite moving. And my sixth choice, and like you, I sought some help with this, because when my three daughters were younger, on a Saturday night, we'd have a kitchen disco. So it was those three and me dancing. And the song is YMCA, because that was their favourite.
Yeah. That goes back to the mid-70s with us at Durham.
Yeah, but the
and all the arm movements.
Yeah.
YMC. Yeah. Really
Yeah.
good.
I will just say this about dancing.
You can't do it.
No, I know. I'm a very keen sort of disco type dancer. I went to I went to a law society ball in Brighton, and it was the usual sort of rubbery chicken dinner, dull speech by a solicitor. But
Bye, darling.
But then a very good tribute band came on, and they could just play anything, and they sang and played beautifully, and no one was dancing, and I turned to Chris, a member of my chambers, younger member of my chambers. I said, I don't know, Chris, I think for once I'm going to get up and have a dance. And Chris has got a great sense of humour. He said, Richard, I've never known an occasion when you don't have a dance. Keith, I think we're over to you now, aren't we?
Well, I'm going to go a bit religious on you because my next choice is Jerusalem.
Aha. Why not?
Yes. I mean, it is very English.
Yes.
It's gutsy. It's a great favourite, and I think it's stirring music.
Yes.
And my next one is in the 1940s. Again, we didn't have a top 40. We had so-called disc jockeys. Well, they didn't call them disc jockeys. They just called them presenters, I guess. And we only had the BBC, of course. There was no alternative. But the one that I remember most from then is Frankie Lane with Granada. Once again, fairly gutsy, and he was a gutsy singer. But I met Frankie Lane when I was in Vancouver. I got to know his musical arranger. Here we go. Yeah.
Did you catch that one, Richard?
Yeah, I caught that one.
Got that one.
I've got a list.
He's a very, very talented man who travelled when he was on tour doing the nightclubs and so on. Travelled with him, and so as a consequence, I got to know Frankie Lane a bit. And one of my abiding memories is sitting in the Georgia Hotel in Vancouver with Lane in his underpants, listening to Whiter Shade of Pale.
Oh,
he put it in his repertoire and was listening carefully to the lyrics. So there I was helping translate Whiter Shade of Pale into a form that Frankie Lane could understand. Actually, I think Whiter Shade of Pale is also a very fine piece, but it's Granada that I remember him for because it was in my very formative years.
Is Whiter Shade of Pale, was that a working title for your appearance in that film?
Yes, probably. That's probably why they left me on the cutting room floor.
And why was Frankie in his underpants?
Because he would perform until 1 o'clock in the morning at the nightclub, and so he didn't get up until 11 or so. But you know, I don't know whether some youngsters particularly appreciate it, but successful people are very hardworking people. I mean, I'm sitting with two of them right now. Very successful people, but very hardworking people. In fact, we become
What?
boring with how hard we work. And he would roll out of bed and immediately go to work and start to listen to stuff to improve and extend his repertoire and stuff that he'd heard that he liked and so on. So it was sitting in the living room of his suite, of course, and that's the way he sort of went to work.
Yes, Keith. Well, another slightly troubling aspect of your past, if I may say. There we go. Right, Philip. I think
What isn't troubling about his past? I mean,
that's true. We've yet to find it.
that's the easier way of approaching that subject.
Yeah.
Well, two asides. Firstly, Jerusalem was played and sung by my choice at both my father and mother's funerals. Whiter Shade of Pale. I'm a great fan of brass band music, probably because of my heritage, I don't know. But a wonderful version of Whiter Shade of Pale is played by a brass band. Just in case you wanted to listen to it, it'll be online somewhere. But so that brings me on to two other pieces of music. The first one is Concerto de Aranjuez.
Oh, yes.
By Rodrigo. Not only have I always liked the music, it also played a great part in a film called Brassed Off, in which in particular Pete Postlethwaite, who I thought was one of the best actors around, played a dying band leader from a northern mining town that had all shut down. And these were the ex-miners who got together, like based on the Grindthorpe Colliery Band. And it was a film full of dark humour, not unlike The Full Monty, in times of huge difficulty. But Concerto de Aranjuez was one of the tunes they played at the competition that they won down in Alexandra Palace, brass band competition. But it was also the song where they took on their first ever female who played the trumpet. And you can imagine all these hard-bitten, out-of-work miners were very sceptical. But Postlethwaite was adamant that she, at least for that song, would be part of the band. And inevitably she was brilliant. And there's this, I think, quite moving bit in the scene when they're rehearsing. And all the blokes who hadn't even bothered picking up their instruments, they were so cynical about her. The minute she started playing, they all sort of were looking at each other, and then they each picked up their instruments. And then they all rendered this brilliant version of the Rodrigo Concerto. And on similar theme, going back to the Arundel festivals, the band of the Royal Marines would play a lot. And they often played Crown Imperial by William Walton, which I always liked.
There's a version of the Concerto by Miles Davis.
Really?
Yes.
No.
And it's not to everybody's taste. And I always get told off when I play it at home. But I think it's a brilliant little piece of music because, of course, he noodles around with the theme.
Well, I shall look that up the minute we finish, because I thought I knew my Miles Davis, but obviously I don't.
Well, it's only that. So I think we've done all 8 of yours, haven't we, Philip?
I have. Thank you for listening. Yes.
Right. My 7th is one that I share with John Peel, sadly no longer of this parish. And it's Teenage Kicks by the Undertones,
Yep.
which is less than 2.5 minutes long, but it's just an absolute blast. And
Yes, I can hear it in my mind now.
Yeah. And an odd little feature of it is that Fergal Sharkey, who was the lead singer of the Undertones, is now a great campaigner for water purity in our rivers. And
Well, as a shark, you would be, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, here's an odd little factoid. Chalk streams, the British Isles has 85% of them that appear in the whole world. So, there's a whole ecosystem there that we need to preserve, because
we have some wonderful chalk streams up towards the Swanbourne Lake and the Wildfowl Trust that feed off the Arun.
Yeah.
And they are clear as crystal.
Yes.
They're just wonderful to look at. They're just amazing. You see all the fish.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And then my final one, because it reminds me of my girlfriend at college, is Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered. Which was one of our favourites. And the lyrics are very, very funny.
They are.
Slightly filthy, but very, very funny. Yeah. So that's my 8th.
Very good.
Keith.
Now, Mr. Moderator, I challenge you to not drop one more name until the end of the programme.
All right.
That's your challenge.
All right. Well, that cut 16 of my choices out.
I knew you'd say that.
Well,
Go ahead, Keith.
my 2 next to are a bit esoteric, I think. That one is 1,000 musicians somewhere, I think, in Eastern Europe, in Czechoslovakia, in a stadium, uncoordinated. They're all gathered and they play Rebel Rebel. It is the most magnificent example of how they can be coordinated without any rehearsal at all. They're all grouped together. They're a combination of singers and musicians. And if you've never heard it, find it on the internet because it's quite stirring. Secondly is the opening sequence of Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, right.
When the sun comes up over the desert, and you got this refrain before he goes into him riding the camel. I think those 2 affect me when I see them. Yeah.
Don't tell me you met the camel in Vancouver.
No, it was when I was trying to fiddle expenses. I bought one in the Middle East.
I bet you did. I believe you. I just know that's true.
Actually, if I can just tell the story about the camel, is it wasn't me. It was somebody at Thames Television who went out to cover the 6-day war and came back and put in an expensive bill for the purchase of a camel. And the editor said, "I'll never get this past the bean counters. Go away. You must have done something with the camel," and so on. So he came back and put in the bill, X for 1 camel, burial for 1 camel, X or Y.
he was told that he wasn't going to get paid for it, did he get the hump?
Oh dear.
Boom, boom.
He's on
Boom,
form.
boom.
So Philip, I think we move on to your book.
Birdsong, Sebastian Folkes.
First World War, isn't it?
First World War, superb story, but based on factual locations and events.
I found this the most difficult bit.
Can I understand what we're talking about?
You get to choose a book that you can take with you.
Oh, right.
And I thought about the circumstances where I'm sort of stranded on a desert island, and I thought I could get something heavy to read, but I thought, no, actually, what I want the collected Jeeves stories by P.G. Wodehouse, because
Why not? Yeah.
they will keep me entertained. Yeah. A book.
Wind in the Willows.
There we go.
In my view, the best book ever written.
So when you're on the Red Devil, you behave like Mr. Toad.
That's absolutely yes.
No question.
But my favorite chapter in the whole thing is the Piper at the Gates of Dawn, where the two little animals see the great god Pan, and at the end of the chapter, as they're rowing back down the river, they can only vaguely remember the incident, and then they start to forget it all together. And then he describes exactly how it gets lost in the reeds blowing in the wind, and it is so evocative. Quite often, what happens to memories is they get lost as they get waved along by the elements.
And then the last thing, Keith, is we all get to choose a luxury item. It can't be a person. It can't be anything that's alive. So what's yours, Philip?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I missed that.
What's your luxury item?
Well, my luxury item, if it's physically possible, is a playable recording of an event in October 2011 at Old Trafford, Manchester, where the final score was Manchester United 1, Manchester City 6. And I remember watching it live with a friend, and we were so exuberant and boisterous as lifelong Blues that we virtually had sex with each other.
Thank you, Philip. I think
so that's what I'd like to watch on a loop. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that ought to have been Keith's line. But anyway, there we go. I would have lots of oil paints and lots of canvases. Not brushes, because I rather like painting with my fingers. I know that sounds really weird, but
well, it's what weirdos do. I mean,
yeah, there's an artist in Lewes called Jo Lamb. People might know her.
You've mentioned her before.
Yeah, and so I used to go along to her art classes.
Yeah, you did.
And she encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do, and it was very liberating.
Now, can we keep to the art?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's keep to the painting, Richard.
Okay, thanks. What about you, Keith?
I don't know. I'd forgotten that we were supposed to have thought of this. I mean, having listened to Philip, I think I wanted to say a replay of the last 10 minutes of the 2006 Rugby World Cup. I was in a place called the Cookery Bar in Kosovo, in Pristina, when watching that. And the tension was huge, which I'm sure it was throughout the world. But on the other hand, I think I would quite like to be nominated a judge of the Miss World Cup.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
I think that really sums him up, Richard.
I think it probably does.
Very, very surface.
You've all done better than a woman called Maura Limpany, who, when she went on that in the 1970s, I think she must have misunderstood the concept of the program, because all 8 pieces of music that she chose were her.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
What was her name?
Maura Limpany.
Limpey.
Lympy.
Right. Because upstairs, years ago, I bought Jackie a digest of, because she always listens to Desert Island Discs, and I bought her a digest for a Christmas present. So I must look in that book and see whether that woman's in there.
Yeah. And there's another couple of stories about it. John Sessions, the comedian, sadly no longer with us, went on there when Sue Lawley was the host. And he, albeit he was born in Scotland, he came down to Bedfordshire when he was 3, had an English accent. He did the whole of the programme in a very strong Scottish accent. And she was fooled by it. And she said, so, you know, your Scottish heritage comes out with your accent. And he, you know, it was very funny. And the other odd little fact, there's one more to go. Somebody said, you know, people moan and say, oh, I don't want to be on the island on my own. But there was one guest who said, what you're trying to do to me is complete torture, to leave me on my own. I need human company. I need interaction with other people. And you are torturing me if you send me to an island on my own. And the strange thing about that is that it was Enoch Powell who said that.
Dear, oh dear.
So you wouldn't have thought was, you know, the most clubbable of people. I'm not saying I met him.
Well, of course, actually, most people don't remember. They only remember Enoch Powell, the fiery Conservative MP. But he became, after he was fired from the Conservative Party, the member for North Down of the Unionist Party in Northern Ireland. And at the time, I was travelling backwards and forwards a fair amount between London or Birmingham and Northern Ireland. And he was frequently on the plane. And on the odd occasion, I would get to sit next to him and have a chat.
I caught that one.
Yeah. There is a very good, just you remind me about Northern Ireland. There's a very good 3-part programme on BBC iPlayer about the Reverend Dr. Ian Paisley. And it's worth a watch because it sort of deals with his progression and of course how he ended up to a certain extent becoming reconciled with the Catholics.
Yeah. He and Martin McGuinness, I have read, became really quite good friends.
Yeah, they were called the Chuckle Brothers.
There is, of course, the old, in parentheses, joke about Paisley, which goes back years, which is, why was Ian Paisley standing in the middle of the road holding a bicycle above his head? It was holding a rally.
Seriously, Philip.
Yeah. That's like the who's that walking down Westminster talking to herself? It's Margaret Thatcher holding a cabinet meeting.
Yes, quite. Absolutely right. Yeah.
Did you ever meet Paisley?
Yes. Oh, yes. We were favourite enemies. We used to. I mean, remember that Northern Ireland is quite small, so the number of really nice dining places is very limited, and particularly since a lot of them have been wiped out by the Troubles. So we frequently went to a place called the Clanbrassil, which he liked to take his family. And I can remember, actually, I was a bit naughty. I whispered to my wife. I said, you know, Valerie, have you ever seen such an ugly lot of children? They were dreadful. And his daughter, Rona, grew up to be Lord Mayor of Belfast. And when you walked into a room, she got that charisma. She got a sort of sexuality about her. She wasn't the most brilliant looking woman, but boy, was she attractive. Yeah.
Didn't she have her own sort of chat show?
I think she did at one stage. It wasn't in my time, but
No.
yeah. I mean, she's very articulate. He made sure they got a very good education, and his son went into politics after.
Yes, obviously.
But the thing that I liked about Paisley was his subtleties. When he was ready to talk to the press about anything, he would have himself paged in the Europa Hotel. And everybody would, because most of the journalists were there. Ian is ready to talk.
And when he talked, was he in his underpants as well?
Not that I recall. The Paisley underpants I never did get a glimpse of.
Probably for the best.
Yes, it probably was.
And you would have found that he was wearing red socks as well.
Yes, indeed. All the best people did. So, before we go, we've got a few minutes left. Philip, which pre-independent television program do you remember best from the old BBC days?
Oh. Can I sidestep that and ask Barton, because he's better than me at these things? I can remember certain programs, but if you mean sort of pre-ITV, my mind's a bit blank, I'm afraid.
Yes, and I wasn't born.
You're not?
No.
What year were you born?
1967.
Well, in that case, no. Actually, strangely enough, there are two that I really remember very well. One is the Potter's Wheel, and the other is London to Brighton in 4 minutes. Did you? Were you aware of those?
The Potter's Wheel, I remember. I also remember the test card.
Yes, indeed. Well, the thing is, it wasn't a very scientific process making programs in the early days, television being new. So they would be different lengths, 25 minutes, 35 minutes, and so on. So they had this series of short movies that they could pop in. That one is, as you said, the Potter's Wheel. But one of the others was they put a camera in the front of a train between Victoria and Brighton and ran it at fast speed. So it only took 4 minutes. So when they got a 4 minute program to bridge, out they brought the London to Brighton train run.
Well, I'm remembering a favourite children's programme of mine. I think it was BBC, but you'll correct me, called The Herbs.
The
Herbs, Parsley the lion, Dill the dog. Lady Rosemary, Lord Basil. Does that ring the bell? I think that was BBC.
I think it was. Yeah. It wasn't called the Herb Garden, was it? It was called the Herbs.
It was called the Herbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I remember that.
Yeah. Well, of course, everybody remembers Bill and Ben.
Rubber-dubber-dub.
Bill and Ben, flower pot men, and then at the end comes in weed.
Yes,
Yeah,
I do
some
remember.
great old things made with very little to make them with. You know, they really were very good at using trickery with the camera, even in the early days. I mean, an orange box and a toilet roll is about all they had for some things. And in fact, I do remember on one occasion doing the night shift at Ulster Television, and they had a horror movie on. And in those days, you had what was called a scanner to show the titles. It was just a piece of cardboard put together by the art department and put into this scanner with a camera, which made it fill the screen. And one of the technicians decided that this wasn't good enough for a horror film, and so he got a toilet roll and lit it and held up the burning loo roll between the scanner, the television camera, and the artwork. So you got a flame effect around it. We could have all gone up in flames. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for an interesting morning again. I wondered what was coming, and I think that when I put announced this on what's it called, Nextdoor, I said that is that you always chose a topic and would never tell me what it was. And indeed, there you did, and I thought it was a very good topic. As I go through the day, I shall think about that program, and of course, what's going to happen is that I will not remember the songs that I chose, but I keep on remembering songs that I should have chose. Is because even though I'm not a great music lover, when I say that, I'm not very knowledgeable about it. But of course, over a lifetime, you hear thousands of pieces of music, many of which really appeal to you. And I'm sure that those will start to cram back into my mind throughout the day.
Keith, could you keep me on the link to talk to you once you stop being live?
Yes, I think I can. Yeah.
Or are you intending to carry on live?
No, we're going to end this and take just a short break. I'm hoping that Richard has got enough stamina to stay up with me and look at the newspapers.
Absolutely.
So we will take a sort of 5-minute break to get our ducks in a row.
I just want to talk about Wednesday with you.
Okay. Well, let's. If I actually, if I lose you, I will get you back. Okay.
All right.
Or Phil, I'll phone you and stick you on the speaker.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Toodle pip. Cheerio. If we can. Yes. There we go. All right. Thank you, Philip. From Lewis in the Black Horse Pub.